The screen door slammed shut. Your bike hit the pavement. And with the whole summer stretching out ahead of you, there was only one rule: be home before dark. Every day became an adventure. Here are 10 unforgettable summer traditions every boy experienced. Starting with a backyard game so dangerous, the government eventually banned it. Number 10. The backyard picnic. Long before Nerf darts and backyard safety warnings, summer afternoons often began with 4 oversized lawn darts tipped with solid steel. They were called jarts. The problem was, these weren't toys. They weighed nearly a pound, had heavy metal points, and fell straight out of the sky like miniature spears. One bad throw, one sudden gust of wind, or one distracted cousin, and everyone nearby instinctively looked up and jumped out of the way. For boys growing up in the 1950s and 60s, that wasn't considered dangerous. It was just another summer afternoon. Parents sat nearby chatting, kids chased loose darts across the lawn. Nobody thought much about it until the injuries started piling up. After decades of close calls and thousands of emergency room visits, the government finally stepped in. Between 1978 and 1986 alone, lawn darts sent an estimated 6,100 people to the emergency room. Then, in 1988, steel-tipped jarts were officially banned across the United States. Even selling them at garage sales became illegal because they were considered too dangerous to own. If you still have an original box tucked away in your garage or workshop, you're holding on to a genuine piece of American backyard history. Let me know if you do in the comments. But as unforgettable as backyard games were, they were only the beginning. Because once the sun started getting low, the entire neighborhood knew exactly what time it was. Number 9. The summer barbecue. Before gas grills, backyard cookouts began with a ritual every father knew by heart. First came the charcoal. He'd stack the briquettes into a perfect pyramid, drench them with lighter fluid, strike a match, and jump back as a towering fireball erupted into the summer air. Within minutes, thick white smoke drifted across the neighborhood, carrying that unmistakable smell that told every kid one thing: dinner was almost ready. While the grill heated up, someone would walk over to the giant metal Coleman cooler sitting in the shade. It wasn't lightweight plastic. It was a heavy steel box built to survive decades of family vacations, fishing trips, and backyard barbecues. Opening it released a rush of icy air. Then came the familiar ritual: reaching your arm elbow deep into freezing ice water, feeling around for an ice-cold glass bottle of soda, while the built-in bottle opener on the side waited to snap the cap off with a single motion. For millions of families, summer didn't officially begin until you heard the hiss of charcoal and the pop of that first bottle. Believe it or not, the modern backyard barbecue exists because of Henry Ford. Looking for a use for leftover wood from building Model T cars, he turned it into charcoal briquettes, accidentally creating an American summer tradition. But every once in a while, families traded the backyard for somewhere even more exciting. Number 8. The community fair. The moment the county fair came to town, you could feel it. The flashing lights, the music, the smell of popcorn, cotton candy, and diesel fuel drifting through the warm evening air. At the entrance, a worker tore brightly colored paper tickets from a giant roll almost faster than your eyes could follow. You clutched those tickets like treasure, because every single one meant another ride, another game, or another chance to win a prize. Then came the cotton candy. You'd stand there completely mesmerized as colored sugar disappeared into a spinning machine. With one smooth motion, the worker wrapped them around a paper cone until it grew into a giant cloud that seemed almost too big to eat. For one summer night, though, it didn't matter. Ironically, cotton candy was co-invented by a dentist. Somehow the man who helped create one of the sweetest treats at the fair also spent his career telling people not to eat too much sugar. But as exciting as the fair was, The biggest summer adventure was still waiting. Number 7. The road trip. Before GPS, every family road trip started with one question. Who's holding the map? One wrong fold, one missed turn, and suddenly everyone in the car had a different opinion about where you were supposed to go. Those giant Rand McNally road maps covered nearly the entire front seat. They tore along the creases, refused to fold back together, and somehow always looked twice as big when you tried to put them away. But finding your way wasn't the hardest part. It was surviving the heat. Long before air conditioning became common, summer road trips meant driving for hours with the windows down and hoping for a breeze. Families relied on something called a swamp cooler, a strange metal cylinder clamped to the passenger window that looked more like an airplane engine than a car accessory. As the car sped down the highway, hot outside air rushed through a water-soaked pad inside the cylinder. The evaporating water cooled the air just enough to blow a damp breeze into the cabin. It wasn't cold, it wasn't comfortable, but on a sweltering summer afternoon, it felt a whole lot better than nothing. Before GPS, giant roadside statues were the billboards. Families pulled over simply because they couldn't resist seeing what was next. And after hours on the highway, every kid hoped the destination was worth the drive. Number 6, the drive-in movie. Before streaming, before multiplexes, before anyone argued over reserved seats, there was only one place to spend a perfect summer night: the drive-in movie. As the sun slipped below the horizon, a long line of station wagons and sedans slowly rolled through the entrance, where an attendant handed Dad a paper ticket before pointing him toward a giant open field. Finding the perfect parking spot was almost a competition. Too far back and the screen looked tiny. Too close, and everyone ended up staring straight into the sky. Then came one of the most satisfying sounds of the entire evening. Dad reached out the window and lifted a heavy metal speaker from its post with a loud clunk, hanging it carefully on the edge of the car window. Suddenly, the movie wasn't coming from a theater, it was coming from a little gray box just inches from your ear. For kids, though, the movie was only part of the adventure. Before the previews even started, children ran across the rows of parked cars playing tag, tossing baseballs, or racing to the brightly lit concession stand for popcorn, candy, and ice-cold soda. The air smelled like fresh popcorn, hot butter, and warm summer grass, while hundreds of crickets competed with the distant movie soundtrack. As darkness settled in, the giant screen seemed to glow against the night sky. Some kids watched every minute. Others fell asleep in the back seat before the second feature ever began, wrapped in a blanket while the voices from that little metal speaker slowly faded into dreams. For millions of American families, the drive-in wasn't just a place to watch a movie. It was one of the most unforgettable nights of summer. Here's something most people never realized. Drive-ins didn't make their money on movies. They made it on popcorn, hot dogs, and soda, which is exactly why those animated snack ads played before every film. The next morning, summer slowed down, and patience became the most important skill of all. Number 5, going fishing. Long before fish finders and GPS, every fishing trip began with one sound: clank. Dad set the heavy metal tackle box on the ground and flipped open the latches. As the lid lifted, a maze of metal trays unfolded like a miniature toolbox, revealing rows of colorful wooden lures, shiny brass spinners, hooks, bobbers, and lead sinkers that seemed to have a place all their own. Nothing smelled like plastic. Everything smelled of metal, old wood, river water, and years of summer mornings. Then came the rod. Whether it was a beautifully varnished bamboo pole or one of the new fiberglass models, every cast ended with the unmistakable click of a metal reel, sending your line sailing across perfectly still water. Then you waited, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours. The only sounds were birds overhead, insects buzzing through the reeds, and the gentle ripple of water against the shore. And then it happened. The bobber twitched. Once, twice, before disappearing beneath the surface in an instant. For every boy who grew up in the 1950s, that tiny splash was all it took to turn an ordinary summer morning into an adventure. For decades, every fishing trip ended with one extra chore: hanging the fishing line out to dry so it wouldn't rot. Then nylon came along and changed fishing forever. But the best summer adventures didn't always happen in daylight. Number 4. The forest campfire. As the sun disappeared behind the towering pines, the national forest became a completely different world. The last traces of daylight faded from the trees, the air turned noticeably colder, and the only light left came from the crackling campfire in the center of camp. Dinner cooked directly over glowing embers, while a blue speckled enamel coffee pot quietly simmered beside the flames, filling the cool mountain air with the smell of wood smoke and fresh coffee. Beyond that circle of firelight, the forest felt endless. Every snapping twig made you stop and listen. Every distant owl echoed through the darkness. Just a few feet beyond the flames, you couldn't see a thing. When it was finally time for bed, there were no lightweight sleeping bags or inflatable sleeping pads waiting inside the tent. Instead, you wrapped yourself in thick military surplus wool blankets. They were rough, scratchy, and smelled faintly of canvas and campfire smoke. But somehow they stayed warm even after a damp night or an unexpected summer rain. For millions of families, falling asleep beneath a sky full of stars, with nothing but a campfire between you and the wilderness, wasn't just camping. It was one of the greatest adventures of every summer. The interesting part is, Smokey Bear wasn't created for kids. He was created during World War II to help protect America's forests. More than 70 years later, he's still delivering the same message. But after a night beneath the stars, there was only one place every kid wanted to wake up. Number 3. The beach trip. The moment your feet hit the hot sand, the race was on. Dad carried the chairs, Mom hauled the cooler, and the kids sprinted straight for the water before anyone could tell them to wait. Back at the family spot on the beach, heavy wooden chairs with thick striped canvas were unfolded one by one, their weathered fabric carrying the familiar scent of salt air, sun, and summers gone by. Then came the thermos. Every family seemed to have one, a heavy plaid metal thermos packed with ice-cold lemonade or sweet tea that somehow stayed freezing even after sitting in the blazing sun for hours. You'd carefully unscrew the plastic cup from the top, hoping not to spill a single drop, while keeping one eye on the seagulls circling overhead, ready to steal whatever they could. Nothing tasted better than that first cold drink after hours of swimming, digging sand castles, and running barefoot along the shoreline. For so many families, that old thermos wasn't just another piece of beach gear. It was part of summer itself. Back then, beach buckets weren't always plastic. They used to be made of metal, and one summer at the shore was often enough to rust them for good. But when the afternoon heat became too much to handle, every teenager knew exactly where to go. Number 2. The roller rink. When the summer heat became unbearable, there was only one place everyone wanted to be: the roller rink. The moment you walked through the doors, it hit you all at once. The smell of floor wax, leather skates, buttery popcorn, and cherry slushes drifting from the snack bar while the latest hit songs echoed across the building. Then came the best part. You stepped up to the rental counter and laced up a pair of heavy leather skates that felt more like work boots than sports equipment. They were stiff, awkward, and took a few wobbly laps before they finally felt like part of your feet. But it was the wheels that made the experience unforgettable. Long before soft polyurethane wheels, roller skates rolled on solid wood. And when 100 teenagers circled that polished hardwood floor at once, Those wooden wheels created a deep, thunderous rumble that echoed through the entire building. You didn't just hear it, you felt it. For the next few hours, friendships were made, first crushes began, and countless teenagers hoped the DJ would play just one more slow song before the lights came on. For an entire generation, the roller rink wasn't just somewhere to skate. It was where summer memories were made. That perfect glide wasn't an accident. Rinks sprinkled powdered resin across the floor to give skaters just the right amount of grip. But every great summer day ended the same way, with one tradition everyone was happy to help make. Number 1, hand-cranking homemade ice cream. Nothing announced the end of a perfect summer day quite like homemade ice cream. The moment the old wooden ice cream maker came out, everyone knew they were about to be put to work. Making ice cream wasn't as simple as opening a freezer. It was a family event. The heavy wooden bucket was filled with a metal canister holding fresh cream, sugar, and vanilla. Then came the hard part. Layer after layer of crushed ice and coarse rock salt had to be packed tightly around the canister until the bucket was completely full. Then someone grabbed the handle and started turning. At first, the crank spun easily, but with every passing minute, it became heavier and heavier, until it felt like you were trying to turn solid concrete. One person would give up, another family member would take over, and everyone eagerly waited for the moment the handle became almost impossible to move, because that was how you knew it was finally ready. When the lid came off, thick ribbons of homemade vanilla ice cream clung to the metal paddle before the first scoop landed in a waiting bowl. It was rich, creamy, and unlike anything that ever came from a grocery store freezer. For countless families, homemade ice cream wasn't just dessert. It was the reward for an entire evening spent working together, and one of the sweetest memories of summer. The real secret was the rock salt. Without it, the mixture inside never would have frozen into ice cream. 10 summer traditions, 10 ordinary afternoons that became lifelong memories. Maybe that's what we miss most, not the toys,